Hello my friends, you're listening to Ebird Online, and the bogus muddle that's Ariela and Biniyam's relationship is the subject of my video today. Yes, that's right, more from this week's 90-day couples tell-all, and there's still more to come. Why the couples inevitably tell less, and force the eBird into filling in the blank. Right before we begin, please don't forget to press that big red button and subscribe to my channel if you've yet to do so, but a massive thank you to everyone who's subscribed so far. I really appreciate it, and what I appreciate even more are all your comments. And one such comment, which was by Spoons, was talking about Alina and Alina's reasons potentially for being with Stephen, and it would seem there's a lot more to this relationship than meets the eye. So tomorrow I'm going to do a video based on her comment, and I'll be looking into all the reasons why TLC, Alina and Stephen appear to be in cahoots with each other to create their specific storyline. So watch out for that video over the weekend at some point. And so without further ado, I give you Ariela and Biniyam. And so we start this segment with Sean asking, how's the relationship going? And Biniyam says, good. Now I've moved to the US, we're getting on much better, and I have much less anxiety about the relationship. And Ariela pipes up, yes, he can understand me much more now he's seen where I'm from. Ariela, why is the emphasis always on him understanding you and him understanding where you're coming from? Why never the other way round? And we discover that Binny has now moved to the US and his visa has been approved. And Ariela told us earlier that she in fact ended up going to Ethiopia to support him during his application process. And guys, I always thought she would. You could have knocked me down with a feather when she said, no, I'm not going, and Binny went off on his own. But apparently she decided a couple of days later to join him, and the rest, as they say, is history. But all of this was sounding much too much like a good luck story for TLC, and so they introduced to the stage Leandro. And guys, as he walked onto the stage, Ariela said, hey Andro. Guys, she's already preening for him. She's crossed her legs and she's inclined her head to the side. And there's something about her calling him Andro, which is a little bit too much like a pet name. And guys, I know it's just a shortened version of Leandro, but I honestly believe that Ariela always wants to demonstrate to everybody just how close their friendship is. She appears to have no regard for Binny's feelings whatsoever. And we treated to the video of when Leandro came over to Ethiopia and the whole about the bras situation. And then of course when Ariela broke down, crying and having a soul-bearing emotional breakdown, and having a full relationship closure talk in front of Biniyam. And we hear Ariela saying, I just didn't want to lose you and I was so confused. And again I'm reminded of the moment that I think this relationship switched a bit in Binny's head. And so Sean got a little shady, and I'm here for it. And she said, when you met Binny, were you still married? Now Sean doesn't know much about this show, and on that we can all agree. But even shady Sean knows the answer to this question. And Ariela looked up and to the right, as if trying to remember if she was married or not. What? You know very well you were. And she went, yeah, I was still married. You know good and well you were married, Ariela. And you weren't just still married, you were still in a relationship. And Sean piled on the agony by saying, you had to call your husband and tell him that you were pregnant with another man's baby. And Ariela said, yes. And Sean then said, what do you remember about that conversation? But then she said, yes, I remember it very well. Really? Just a few moments ago, you couldn't remember if you were still married or not. Now suddenly, you remember it very well. There's a good reason that you're embarrassed by your actions, Ariela. Because with regard to this matter, they were nothing short of shameless and classless. And she said, I was crying and I was very scared. I didn't know what to do. And Leandro is the person I'd normally go to talk about anything. And they established that Binny had no idea that this conversation had ever taken place. And he said, that's the reason why I don't like this relationship, because they talk all the time, for up to 2 hours on the phone, and in Spanish. And Victor, the ginnerling cheat, well, he said, bro, I'm going to have to teach you some Spanish. And so then Leandro said, one of the most ridiculous things I think I've ever heard. And he asked Binny if she was talking to a girl for 2 hours at a time, in Spanish, and that was her best friend, would you really still have a problem? And Binny said, no, but it's completely different, because you're her ex-husband. And everybody else agreed, and Leandro really thought he was doing something there now, didn't he? It's just because I'm a guy. No, it's not just because you're a guy. It's because you're a guy that for the preceding 10 years, she had been living with, sleeping with, and married to. And I don't think anyone can really justify that, or really try and gaslight someone into, you're just being unreasonable. And so then Ellie piped up, and she said you should never ever talk to anybody else about your relationship, because that's what causes problems. Oh, Ellie, is that what Victor's advised you to do? I'm sure he has. It's clear to me that Victor's manipulation has begun. If you have a problem in one relationship, you don't just decide, I'll only speak to the person with whom the problem is. You have one or two other trusted confidants to give you another perspective. That's how many problems are solved or even just worked through. Anyone advising you any different usually has a reason for doing so. And in Victor's case, a very, very good reason for doing so. And Ariela said, well, I help him with his relationship problems as well. And Kenny said, I'm sure his girlfriend loves that. It wouldn't work on this end. And yet again, he's quite right. And Victor said to Leandro, how would you feel if it was the other way round? I think you should back off. And Leandro said, only if Ari tells me to back off. And so then Binny said, what would you do if I told you to back off? And guys, this really made me laugh because when I saw the trailers for the tell-all, I genuinely thought that Binny said, what would you do if I told you to fuck off? And I thought, wow, he's going for it. But he actually said back off. Binny's nothing if not polite. But Leandro said, I'll only back off if Ari tells me. But all of this time, Ari was still busy making eyes and inclining her head to Leandro. She's not going to back off anytime soon. And it's very interesting to me that she's still making 2-hour calls to Leandro. And I'm going to break this down a little bit more at the end of the video. And Sean finishes off by saying, who thinks he should back off? And the whole of the cast raised their hands. And Binny very theatrically put his hand up, like a 5-year-old in a classroom. I very much believe if the camera panned out properly, we would have seen his middle finger inclined and pointed towards Leandro. And next we have Gonriel and Reagan to the stage, otherwise known as Wish and Mimi, Biniyam's two sisters. And they look less than happy to be there. And when asked about Biniyam's cheating, Ariela said, I thought he was cheating because he wouldn't text me and he wouldn't answer the phone. And Binny said, I was so nervous and so anxious and stressed, I decided not to answer the phone. Binny, all of your arguments were because you didn't answer the phone. There was no other problem in your relationship at that point. And Sean asked the $1 million question, did Wish tell you that Binny was cheating? And Ariela said, well, she asked to stay over. And she felt really mad that I didn't want her in the house. So then she said, well, why do you care? There's so many other girls sleeping there anyway. And what happened next tells me that Wish is trying to shit stir. Because she said, well, I never told her specifically. That word, guys, specifically, means that you're intending to split hairs. I just said, what's the big deal because there are other girls there. And Sean said to Ari, do you believe that? And Ari said, no, I don't. And Sean said, do you think that Binny cheated? And Ari said, well, I don't know, but I don't think so. I.e., I don't know, but I think so. But now we're back together, I want to ignore what I think the past was. And then they start talking about the other Mimi, the nanny. And Mimi and Wish both say, we didn't like the nanny, and Binny didn't like the nanny. She was talking about their business out on the street. And the nanny was a cause of lots of arguments and lots of unhappiness for Binny. And Ariela said, Mimi is the only reason we're still together. And Wish said, Binny didn't like her meddling. But Ari shot straight back with, come on Binny, tell her how great she was to you and how much you love her. And Wish said, stop forcing my brother to say things. But Ariela was getting really mad now, and she said, you always poison my mind against your brother, and I never ever want to speak to either of you ever again. You're jealous. And she got up and strode out of the studio. And at this point I just have to say, jealous of who? Jealous of what? Is there something that you have, Ariela, that we don't know about? Is there something maybe we haven't seen? That's actually a question. Jealous of what? And it's pretty obvious to me that because Ariela found strength in the nanny and an ally with her thought process that Binny is going out too much and turning his phone off and staying out all night, Binny found that a problem and he relayed that problem to his sisters. And Binny said they're going to have to get on with each other. It's kind of a problem between women. Yes, Binny, women and you. But I'm sure they can sort it out together. And Ariela came back. And she said there's nothing to be gained by talking to these two girls because they always lie. And it's these girls that told me that Binny was cheating. And they always want to break up our relationship. And I find this to be somewhat true. Because I remember the time when Wish came over with one of her friends. And she said Binny likes to go to clubs where the foreign girls are. So I think it's entirely true. And if we remember, Ariela's mum actually said she'd spoken herself to Binny's family members and they had said that Binny had girls in the house and that Binny was up to no good. So I do think that Wish wants to break this relationship up and she has always wanted to sabotage the relationship. But Ari then said, if they're going to stay here, I'm going to leave. I don't want to talk to them. And so Sean sided with her and said, girls, it's the end of the interview. Just like that. And that was pretty much where the segment ended. So what does the Ebird make to all of this? Well, as you guys know, I think that Binny did cheat And I think that for Binny, it's a default setting. Both of his previous partners said the same thing, they thought he was cheating. And as the old adage goes, if you hear hooves, it's more likely to be a horse than a zebra. But I think Binny went into overdrive after all the shenanigans with Leandro. And even when Binny was saying, I want Leandro out of our relationship, Ariela said nothing. And it's very telling to me that she's now much happier, that she's on her own home turf, and she's no longer out of sorts in Ethiopia. She enjoys being in control, and now that she is, she's happy again. And the second point I want to make is that almost certainly Mimi told Ariela that there were girls in the house with the sole intention of shit stirring. And when she said, I didn't specifically say that, to me that's always the marker of somebody who kind of in a roundabout way said it, but they're banking on the fact that you can't prove it, or they didn't say it outright, to extricate themselves from a sticky situation. And then of course there's the question of Leandro. Ariela's always coquettish whenever she sees Leandro, and it's not really the case of if she wants a relationship with him anymore or if she doesn't, if she knows it makes her husband-to-be, or as we now hear it, husband, unhappy, why wouldn't you restrict your phone calls to him to a decent amount of time? Why are you talking to him for 2 hours? And Ariela told us before that she only spoke to Leandro in Ethiopia because she was so lonely. But now she's living back at home with her parents and her sisters and brothers, and she's still having 2-hour conversations. About what? And to start off with, I thought it was just because she wanted to keep him close in case things didn't go well with Binny. But on further reflection, I realise it's virtually as if she's still married to Leandro. In a 2-hour conversation, what are you talking about? Pretty much everything. All of your hopes and dreams, your decisions, any little problem that might arise. You're talking over every aspect of your life with your ex-husband. And without being too crude, it sounds like it's Binny for fucking and Leandro for thinking. Yes guys, I know that was very crude, but it is my honest belief. But both people in this relationship have a very questionable modus operandi. Binny knows that not answering his phone and ignoring texts winds up Ariela, and she in turn knows that having 2-hour conversations in Spanish with Leandro is irritating to him, yet they both still do it. And I don't think this lack of respect from both of them bodes well for their future. So guys, let me know what you think in comments down below. I believe at the moment, because Binny's brand new in America, I think as soon as he finds his feet and has a friendship group and is dancing and doing MMA, his wandering eye will return and he won't be able to help himself. And it didn't escape my notice that when Ariela walked into the tell-all, Evelin said, "Oh my god, you look amazing. You're the best dressed and the best looking on the stage," ignoring the fact that she wasn't on the stage. I think these two have had private chats, and I believe that she realises Ariela is insecure about her looks and how good looking Binny is. And Evelin's faux surprise at how she looked was to give Ariela a confidence boost. And by the same token, we've all noticed she's dropped a lot of weight, and she's also had a few fillers and bits and bobs done to her face. And I think she's very worried about Binny and very afraid of the fact that he may well leave her or not be faithful to her. So guys, let me know what you think, and I'll see you very soon. So please don't forget to like and subscribe and all of that good stuff. You've been listening to Ebird Online, and I bid you good day.